Hello everyone and welcome to our first ever Teaching with GIS series. I'm pleased that you could make it, especially during the busy and hectic time that is term 4 and the end of the year. There are lots of familiar faces, or I should say names on here, but for those who don't know me, my name is Jake Lovejoy and I'm the Education Program Manager at Esri Australia and your host for today's webinar. As I mentioned, we are here for the first of what I hope will be an ongoing series aimed at supporting you to teach with GIS. Joining me for the webinar today is a very special guest, Brett Dascombe, one of the teachers who is a part of the ArcGIS Schools program and who has kindly agreed to share how he is using ArcGIS technology. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that we are recording today's webinar and it will be made available later this week to you via email and on our website. Throughout the webinar presentation, we welcome your questions. Please submit them in the GoToWebinar panel on the right-hand side at any time during the presentation, and we'll go through them at the end of the presentation. As previously mentioned, for today we are joined by Senior Experienced Teacher Brett Dascombe, who will be presenting on how to use spatial technologies to improve student outcomes. Brett currently teaches at Wavell State High School, recently contributed to the writing of Queensland's senior geography syllabus, and is also a lead endorser and confirmer of senior geography tasks. Brett extensively utilises geospatial technologies in his geography classes to deliver the geography curriculum, engage students and improve student outcomes, and we'll have a quick look at that in a second. He currently teaches geography from Year 7 through to Year 11 and 12 at Wavell State High School. In this webinar, Brett will be showing us and sharing how Wavell State High School is using ArcGIS in the classroom and in the submission of student assessment. So really quickly, before I do hand over to Brett, the structure of the humanities subjects at Wavell State High School is as follows. In Year 7, 8 and 9, classes experience one semester of history followed by one semester of geography. In Year 10, they have one semester of history, and then in the second semester they can choose from either geography, economics, ancient history, modern history, or legal studies. And this is really about preparing them for senior geography or senior ancient history, depending on the stream they choose, the subject they choose. And Wavell State High School actually offers a range of senior humanities subjects, including geography, economics, ancient history, modern, legal studies, or social and community studies. So there's quite a range on offer at Wavell State High School. The school also uses a wide range of geospatial technologies, which is really led and championed by Brett, but also greatly supported by his humanities heads of department. With their support, Brett has been able to obtain a number of drones to assist in the collection of data in the field, particularly in senior assessment tasks. As you can see on the screen, Brett uses a wide range of ArcGIS applications like Quick Capture, Collector, and Survey 123, which are field applications. ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro allow Brett and his students to create their own data and import drone footage, and his classes also use StoryMaps, Quadrats, and SparkView, and more. Lastly, before I hand over to Brett, I just wanted to really drive home the point that Brett is a huge advocate for the use of geospatial technologies in the classroom, and this is really because it leads to a better student outcomes. It comes down to students being more engaged, and as their interest and engagement peaks, so do their skills, their knowledge, and I guess their end results, their achievements. Students value the skills they develop, and it's preparing them for the real world, preparing them with the skills that they might need in their university degree, but also in their professional industry, their career one day. And you see these better outcomes in the classroom as well. The use of geospatial technologies helps to improve behavior management as students are more engaged. It helps their problem solving skills. It has that component of, I guess, STEM attached to it as well. It's making geography that rigorous subject as well. It improves student collaboration and teamwork. For example, using some of the field apps in the actual field and students working together to collect that data on a geospatial technology. It proves skills sharing. You'll often see that students are helping each other out with the software and with the geospatial applications, and it improves their work output and assessment results. So without further ado, Brett, I know that I'm super excited to hear about what you and your classes are doing at Wavell State High School with the use of geospatial technologies. So I'm passing control over to you. Take it away.
One of the young teachers here at Wavell has started using her StoryMaps as a teaching resource, and she's creating her own teaching resources, which has just been a wonderful revelation to me and has encouraged me to actually start using them as well. We use Esri's teaching resources in junior. I've categorized them in different year levels, and we use them as teaching resources or to kick off a project in any of those units for years 7, 8, and 9. I think they're invaluable and give the students a really good understanding of how to use ArcGIS. And as well as that, they also have a lot of really valuable data that geographers don't have to go searching for. In junior, we do field reports on the school. We create swipe maps, as you can see here. We put up the drone and capture footage. We do field sketches and insert them into the story maps. So we're really looking at all the skill sets in geography: graphing, finding data sets, evaluating data, mapping, creating layers, all those embedded into our geography program here. We're finding at the moment, like with the school, it's changing rapidly, and this is a way back app from the Living Atlas. So if you're doing any sort of project, you can get your own school. Currently it's 2014 to 2020, and you'll be really surprised at how much your school changes in a 6-year period. And as that ages, you'll see more and more change in your school or in your fieldwork. We'll be using that for North Stradbroke Island and West End when we do our senior projects next year. Hopefully we'll be able to travel again and do that. So in senior, what we're looking at is the senior program here at Wavell. We use it. I use it predominantly in Year 10. I introduce my students to some really high-tech processes, and then that is just enhanced in Year 11, and by Year 12, they're designing their own projects, which is where you need to be in Year 12 with the new syllabus. These are just some of the projects. This was a Year 11, the COVID was Year 11, the palm oil was Year 10, and you can see the Ebola outbreak, which aligns with the ecological hazards. That was a Year 11 project last year. So there's a range of projects that you can do. It's endless pretty well, depending on your syllabus, and then you can adapt that as much as you'd like to your own teaching resources, because data is so freely available now compared to when I first started. I'm starting to embrace the young teachers' philosophy and using StoryMaps as a teaching resource, particularly for my senior units, Unit 3 and Unit 4. I've seen some excellent examples of this. I'm just going to show you. Let's just go to, sorry. This is Unit 3 at Wavell, and what I've done is just created a teaching resource for the students, given them what they need to know, the topic, spatial distributions, and just gone through and covered the objectives that are required, created and given them options to participate in activities as we go through. So these are all from NOAA or IPCC or images that are easily accessible. The beautiful thing about StoryMaps is you can also include links. So these dots here are links to web pages, which allows you to give the students an opportunity to have a look at web pages as well. This was an activity I did with my Year 11s recently for their Year 12 unit, and they described the spatial distribution of tropical moist forests in the world. So it's a really interactive way to get your students engaged and introduce them to some of the tasks and some of the abilities of GIS as well. One of my favorites is the swipe map. This is very popular with students. When you show them how to do a swipe map, you get them in straight away. And I often talk about before and after photos of natural disasters, and it doesn't always have to be that. One of my favorites is this one. This is the glaciers in Papua New Guinea, Highlands, and the disappearance of them between 1988 and 2017. And that's just from the NASA Earth Observatory website. And what we've done is got them to analyze that, explain the patterns of land cover change over time. I'm just going to switch back to the PowerPoint. I've also put together StoryMaps as a teaching resource. So this is what I've been doing with StoryMaps that I find and that I've found online. And this is such a good resource, particularly if you're teaching particular units to your students. I always make sure that the units, because StoryMaps is becoming so popular in schools these days, it's really important to source them correctly and make sure that they're not a student's work. Quite often you'll see students sharing publicly their story maps, but it's really important to check the sources. You can see this one here is UNHCR, and this one down here is just wonderful, In Search of Refuge. And that was the winner, and that's got Esri on it as well. So, you know, just making sure that they're really well-sourced story maps as teaching resources. I embed spatial technologies into my assessment in Year 10, really. We went to Bribie Island last year as our field trip, and went to Warren Beach, and we looked at Bruce Highway, plastics on Warren Beach, building a new bridge. So I try and get in the future engineers into my classes in senior geography. Unfortunately, this year I only got one in, but we've got 22 students moving in from Year 10 to Year 11 senior geography. And last year we also had 22 students taking senior geography. I'll show the quality of the kids soon, but I also introduced them into using Arcgis Online and ArcMap 10.8 in Year 10. Most of the time with the ISMGs, we can hit the top 2 levels very easily by using StoryMaps and Arcgis Online. Create purposeful cartographic and graphic forms, and create sophisticated cartographic and graphic forms, and proficient transformation and representation of geographical data and information. It's really easy for us in Queensland to hit those top marks when students are engaging with spatial technologies. I believe gone are the days, and people might disagree with me, but the quality of work that's produced using spatial tech in particularly Year 11 and Year 12 is just outstanding when they're embracing spatial technology. I understand that it's important to teach the students skills because in Queensland, our external assessment is hand-drawn maps and hand-coloured in maps or hand-created graphs. So there's still that old school need to teach them those skills, and that's definitely the case. With these Year 10 students, these are some of the projects that they have created. We use Collector up on Bribie Island to collect extreme erosion data. We also collected traffic data at the bridge. I submitted a number of these students' work in Year 10 to the Australian Spatial Science Comp, and we were fortunate enough to have a Year 10 student come second and another Year 10 student get highly accomplished. The Year 7 project run, so we had great success. These are the sorts of access to data, Global Social Progress Index, and behind this particular data set, which is just simply found on Arcgis Online, you can find a huge depth of data that's freely available these days. I might just take you to the web app that the young man that came second, and erosion on Bribie Island. Now he was using the old You can see how visually stunning this is. It certainly is a step up from your traditional report format, and they can include photos, introductions. This is the old story map. So this young gentleman continues to use the older story map, which he finds easier to use, where most of my students have now migrated to the new story map. This is data he collected on the day. He did a survey 123 and surveyed people on the island. So you can see there he's included that data. So this makes this a very good field trip exercise. He's also included his, most people are quite familiar with Survey 123, and once you show your students how to use it, they have a great time with it. Currently, my Year 10s are trying to send their surveys to every student in the school. Haven't quite worked out how to break the system yet, but they're having fun doing it. This young gentleman included some Palm Beach data to replicate what he wanted to do at Bribie Island, put in an artificial reef, and again, his survey data, a wonderful interactive map, and this is where he's included his data as well. So we can see here extreme erosion and spilling waves. So we did collect data on the day and plotted it using mobile phones. We're a non-mobile phone school, so I've just put in an application to get 10 iPads for the social science department, and we're going to be able to collect data in the field using those iPads once we install Collector and a few other apps on it as well. He's created a swipe map. This one is so this is a 1950 aerial image underneath, and you can see he's included the land use, which is residential, if we were to click on that, and you can see the change over time, 1957 through to 2018, I believe it was. If you look at Bribie Island and Palmerstone Passage, the bridge appears, and the bridge was built in 1963, I think a year before I was born, and really hasn't changed at all. So it's still a single lane each way, and quite an old bridge. So there's lots of traffic issues with regard to that. So he explored, another student explored that, and these projects are Year 10 projects, which I think are outstanding projects. This isn't our drone footage, although it's quite nice aerial image, and he's come up with a solution. He's placed his groin and his artificial reef where he thinks they should go. And, you know, it's really quite a sophisticated, he's referenced it well, and I can understand why he certainly came second. And look, these students are exceptionally talented in their design as well. I've had the pleasure of looking at other schools' work, and other schools are doing fantastic work. I saw recently a story map where a young Year 10 student had got an image of a jellyfish floating, and then had swipe mapped a floating plastic bag, which was really, really clever. So I start very seriously in Year 10, then into Year 11 in the investigative report, and the FA4, which is a formative assessment 4. This year we looked at COVID-19. Probably did that a little bit too early this year, because the project was just after the students got back from their 5-week lockdown. I did set a parameter that they couldn't look at Australia. So I think that was a smart move, so that in case something close to home happened, I made them choose a country to look at and look at their response to COVID in the early days. They produced some fantastic work. This group is the Year 10s that came through, and they're heading into Year 12. We're getting ready to produce Year 12 work at the moment. I just want to highlight again, these are all different students, so they're not all the same students. And here's the COVID by one of my young students, Year 11. And again, the interactive, so this is the new system of StoryMap, and she's used the interactive table of contents, as well as put in her own table of contents, introduction and methodology, content, and she's embedded a video highlighting the weekly growth rate. So, you know, they're just so clever with their use of technology, and they're so apt at design as well, as I'll showcase with my 2 senior students in a moment. Again, interactive map, she's put in a legend. We can extend it out. We can look at the individual data. I can click on that and see what data she's selected, and it should come up. Yep, so that's Clark, Nevada, and it gives me the county fatality rate. I'm just going to move on as well because she's included some wonderful maps of, let's get out of that. So this one's one of my favorites. She's used the relationship legend and created a high-low, and this is county fatality rates versus total population. So she's created a really complex map, which makes marking really quite easy. I can extend that, have a look at it, look at the data. And in fact, I was looking at the data this afternoon, and this one up here in Nebraska interested me, and it's a 6% county fatality rate, which is quite high when you think about COVID's fatality rate. So, you know, certainly they can, and this is data that they've accessed online and found quite easily. I have helped them guide them to it, but certainly it's all their work. It's really important to highlight how powerful this is in your classroom. And again, so well referenced. These are exceptionally good students. I'm very fortunate. I do get a lot of really good students coming into my classroom. This year, we're doing the megacities in a developing country, and these are just some of the outputs from the students. So my philosophy this year with the FA4 was to model what they need to do in their first IA in senior class. This year we've changed a little bit in Queensland, and last year it was either a graph or a map. This year it is a graph and a map. So in 2 hours, being able to produce a map and a graph as well as do questions, I think it's critically important to give them the ability to do this electronically. I set up the data, and it's pretty bland, and then they manipulate it to produce unique responses. And there's another student's map on top of the previous ones, just showing that they come up with different solutions. They also can put in all the bolts. You've got the north arrow, source, legend, and scale as well, title. And then the different types of Excel spreadsheets that they can produce using technology in the assessment. This is my Year 12 work. This year, my Year 12s looked at Samford Valley, Pimpamar, Jimboomba, and Newstead in their investigative report. Unfortunately, our field report was cancelled this year. It was at the height of COVID. I do have a DJI Mavic and a Pro, and now a Mini, and we were going to put that up at North Stradbroke Island and get some data. My hope is to use drone to map in the future, but I need to teach myself that first. So that could be a bit of a challenge. But the students produced some really good quality work. Again, here's the ISMG, and it's just, you know, really important to understand how easily the students can hit those top standards with using StoryMap and ArcGIS. We didn't get to Stradbroke this year, but in 2010, one of my exceptional students created this amazing story map. It's using the old system, but she's got such a wonderful design eye, this particular student. In Year 12 this year, she has been shortlisted for the Queensland Planning Excellence Award for her IA3. I submitted 2 Year 12's work and 6 Year 10's work, and she was shortlisted, and she finds out on the 6th of November whether she wins the secondary school Excellence in Planning Award this year. It's really exciting when you see this quality work. I'm just going to showcase the quality of this particular assignment as well. So we used to do Stradbroke Island, and that's the North Stradbroke Surf Lifesaving Club where we stay. I take my Year 12s over there now, and we're planning our trip for term 1 next year. But this particular assessment piece is just a beautiful piece of story map telling, more so than anything. I've signed a memorandum of understanding with the Redland Shire Council to obtain the data, and they were really helpful in getting the data that's available. So all these Point Lookout residential and Point Lookout tourists are all data supplied by Redland Shire Council. She's gone on. Her design eye is such that she puts very topical images behind each of her sections, like sand mining, for instance. We do look at the Quandamooka people, the traditional owners of North Stradbroke Island as well. And this young man is Matt Burns, who's a traditional Quandamooka descendant, and I get him to speak to the students. Now, what I love about this student is that she's actually found a video on Queensland tourism, and it's a very short 2-minute video. I hope you can see that. And she's included that into her story map to highlight the Indigenous connection to the land. Matt's actually talking under this and explains his connection to land. And that's just such a powerful tool to put into a piece of assessment. And when I saw it, I was just blown away. It's just such clever use of technology, and is so accessible to students and to teachers. Again, you can see the quality. Cylinder Beach is what she's looking at there. And again, just beautiful images that we took when we were on the field trip in, I think it was 2018. Here she's compared 1955 Stradbroke to 2012 Stradbroke, so you can see the scarring and the re-veg on the island. So, you know, it's just so powerful. And again, one of my favorites, this is using the old spyglass, and she's got the 1950 image underneath the current image. And as I move the spyglass over the map, it shows what's underneath. And you can see the change in land use down here in the just off the spit. What's really clever here as well is she's actually included her own dropouts. So I can put that back in, and I can click on 2, and out comes a little pop out of what's actually there, Point Lookout. And it's just such clever use of the technology. I can zoom out and zoom in. Hopefully this will come into the new story map. I still recommend having a look at the old story map to just some of the really neat things you can do with it. That's probably one of my favorites. Again, management, she's looked at proposals, her proposal to keep the island sustainable after sand mining leaves, and she's put in some of her own icons and some ideas. One's a whale watching deck and mobile marine wildlife clinic. As we did see some turtles, we saw a turtle that was had a boat strike on it over there as well. Again, just so well designed and so well presented, and even the reference list is quite outstanding. I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint. Finally, this is this year's work from my 2 best students, although this year, of the 4 submissions I made to the Queensland Curriculum Authority, 4 of them were MP4s of story maps, and 1 was a hard copy of the assignment. So I still allow my students who are not that confident or come into my class late, who don't want to engage in the technology, I still give them the opportunity to use the technology, but also to present a traditional report in paper form. So in saying that, out of 25, one of my paper-based reports got a 23. These two were awarded 25 out of 25, and it just makes it really easy when you send it off to panel or confirmation. When teachers are seeing this at confirmation, it makes it really easy to justify those high marks because they've just put so much work into these particular PowerPoints. I'm just going to showcase one last story map. I'm not going to showcase the young lady who's been nominated, but I want to showcase the school captain's work this year. I'll just show you this young man's work. It's just sensational. Again, a list of figures, that is 23 figures. He's got the interactive table of contents up the top, and it's just, again, another stunning piece of work. This is Pimpama on the Gold Coast, which he selected. He was given one set of data. He was given the outline of the essay, and he was given a land use map. So that was all, so the land use was just a standard map. So that's all he was given. And this is what he's produced from that. So I'll just reduce that. Now, he does a very technical FA3 as far as I'm concerned. He does a very good technical job. These are all pop-outs, so individual pop-out graphs that he's created himself. He's done a swipe map. This is a stunning swipe map from 2012 to 2018. And you can see, if you look in the bottom corner here, the change in land use is absolutely observable. And also the change in the temporal data as well is just really well done. You've got farmland up here, conservation area, and change in land use. Again, he's used graphing, really sophisticated graphing, and again, it's pop-outs, and the writing is, his writing is absolutely spot on. So this is a really good example. I pointed them towards the Queensland Statistician's Office, and he's created a graph from, I think it's 2016 data to, let's have a look here, yes, 2041 predicted data and comparing it to 2016. So again, just so sophisticated in the work that they produce. And even your middle and lower level students will engage with this sort of technology because it's part of their world. Again, we've got land use here. He's even found some data of future residential land development, which is really quite sophisticated when you look at it in depth. He's got koala habitat data, which again is a pop out. He didn't need to do that because environmental wasn't a problem, wasn't something that they looked at, but he chose to do that. Housing affordability, swipe map, education. He's created class size versus enrollments. It's just such a sophisticated assessment piece, and you know, he should be so proud of the work that he's done, as should my other student, and this is her example. This one's a lot more visually appealing. She's included really lovely images underneath, and I'm just going to roll through on this. Same sort of data, but just really clever design features in this. This particular pop-out is really clever because she looks at the lack of aged care facilities in the area as well and compares that to population. I'm just going to run back to the PowerPoint slide because I'm running out of time. I'm just going to run through. These are some of the comments my students and past students have made about using GIS in the classroom. You can see here, Ruby is now living and working as a civil and environmental engineer in Canada. Ella was just awarded school captain here and is in my class. Charlotte has done amazing things, and her comments are quite interesting because she's actually used GIS to get a job while she's a student as well. Emma shortlisted in Queensland Planning Excellence Awards. This is an urban planner, young urban planner who was a B student in my class but went off to uni and was getting 7s. and Jamie is a transport planner in Brisbane, looking at bike paths and better use of sustainable transport. This is a young gentleman who wants to be an engineer. Didn't quite get him into my year 11 geography class, but you know, you can't win them all. But they're just exceptional, and they just do really value what you teach them with regards to GIS. I do enter my students into a lot of competitions. We don't win them all, and that's great because, you know, when we do win them, I think it's very special for the students. And here's some of my students that have won awards recently, and I'm hoping to add to that with Emma being shortlisted. I get great support from administration and particularly my HOD. I just can't thank her enough for the amount of support I get. I'm getting towards the end. I'm just going to talk about how I promote students' work, and I think this is really important because quite often, since I've been teaching, we hide students' work in the cupboards, never to see the light of day unless it's on an open day, highlighting what they're doing. I've started promoting the work that my students do on LinkedIn, and you can see here, you know, the people that view these university professors, consultants, GIS specialists, civil engineers, and from all over the world: Dallas, Fort Worth, Adelaide, Perth, Melbourne. And I think it's really important. Jacobs is an engineering company, the Department of Road Transport, QUT. I just think it's so important to promote students' work because this gets them a foot in the door. This is another one I promoted, our Geospatial students, and you can see there it's had 1,190 views. I think it's important to showcase, and I stay connected to a lot of my students through this. This one, you've got places like Arup, QUT, UQ, Catholic Ed, Transport, Brisbane City Council, Shell, and it's just so powerful. And I show this to the students, and they have such pride in seeing their work. And maybe I often talk to them about setting up their own professional network, and that's a really good thing to do. Bit of shameless promotion here. With COVID this year, I've started recording some YouTube videos, and I found it really helpful. I find the Excel ones really popular. My students get in there, and a lot of teachers point their students in other classes towards these to show them how to create a climate graph using Excel, and I label them. I find most of mine are not more than 10 minutes. You'll see here 4, 10, 6. Because of you know, the short attention span. You don't want to be sitting for half an hour. And I know Jake's done some wonderful videos that I go to on YouTube and watch and learn new skills as well, as does Joseph Kursky, who's going to be talking to you in a couple of weeks. This one's great. I have a pre-service teacher with me at the moment, and she's an ex-student of mine. She started her university life as an urban planner, and they recalculated. She had an OP10, and she recalculated her OP at the end of the first year, and it was an OP1. And she decided urban planning wasn't for her, and she became a science geography teacher. And she's with me, and I'm hoping we can employ her here, but she's already getting interviews. And she's just fallen into this, and I think it's so important to have pre-service teachers just coming back into our classrooms with these skill sets. I've learned so much from her. And another great thing is in Queensland, we've got a Facebook geography page, and some of the young teachers are putting up such fabulous resources to share with everyone. And it's just such a wonderful sharing community. I think teaching has come a long way with technology, and COVID has had some really positive outcomes this year with teachers and students sharing their particular resources. Moving forward, we're having a GIS day here at Wavell State High School, and we've got interest from teachers, which is wonderful. StoryMaps, which is one of my other favourite sites because of the droning they do, is showcasing some stuff we're doing here on GIS Day. We find out on the 6th of November about Emma and whether she wins the award this year. I love GIS, and I'm going to continue to develop new GIS projects. I can't help myself. It's just something I love doing, and also continue to learn new spatial technology. I'm not an expert by any means, and I've got so much more to learn. We use probably 0.1% of the capability of the Esri software here at Wavell, but you know, it just makes such a huge difference in the classroom. Keep getting the word out there, keep advancing my students' work and presenting it in different ways. I'd like to create some of my own personal projects. I was fortunate enough to whitewater raft for 5 days down the Franklin River in January this year before COVID, and you know, it's just an amazing experience, and I'd love to put a project together on that, StoryMap project together on that. And then to apply, I'm currently putting in to present at Esri Education in the US and AGTA in Hobart next year for the Australian Geography Teachers Association. That's just about it from me. If anyone would like any information, please feel free to email me. My email's there. Have a look at my story maps. Let me know what you'd like to know, and I'll, over the holidays, put together some more YouTube videos. You can contact me at LinkedIn, and the QCAA wonderfully came into my classroom and did a 3-minute video, which is a link there. I'm going to hand back to Jake now. I've just about taken up most of my allotted time. Thanks very much, Jake. Back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brett. That was awesome. It is, honestly, it's great to see how you and your wider teaching team, your pre-service teachers even, have adopted an integrated GIS into your school's curriculum and assessment. And it really does go to show that if you give the students the chance to engage with the technology, which is sometimes perhaps the most scary thing to do, you know, they can create the amazing stuff. We have had a couple of questions come through, and we'll get started with them in just a second, but I just want to remind you that you can still submit a question via the GoToWebinar question box. And I do want to raise just really quickly, Brett, I found this out maybe 5 minutes in. There was a little bit of a problem with some of the audio, and I do wish to apologize for that. You've probably means that you've missed my introduction of Brett. So just to briefly recap and make sure we're all on the same page, Brett is a senior experienced teacher working at Wavell State High School. He has contributed to the writing of the senior geography syllabus in Queensland. He's a lead endorser and confirmer. And just the way that Brett is using geospatial technologies in the classroom is outstanding. And to be perfectly honest, especially for a new teacher, can seem quite daunting. So I've got a question that I will ask to start things off, Brett. And it's simply this: the story maps look awesome, but they do appear complex, especially if your knowledge of geospatial technology is limited. With that in mind, do you have any suggestions as to how to introduce this technology to students before they're reaching the business end of year 11 and 12, when time really is, I guess, precious?
Yeah, I think it's really important to introduce them to these skills as early as possible. You know, year 7, I have year 7s at the moment. Only my class are doing story maps, but we're looking at integrating it right across the school next year. The earlier you can get in, and even if it's as simple as putting in images and writing it up and showing them how to add text or how to add a photo or a map, it's just building those skills constantly. I really do put a lot of effort into my year 10s, because my year 10s is where I get my senior classes from. They choose geography in the 2nd semester, and quite often I'll do it in the 1st semester in history. Next year, we've canned the environmental movement unit, and we're doing rights and freedoms. So my plan is to introduce StoryMap in rights, the freedom riders in Australia, and create a story map of the freedom riders, so it can apply to history as well. But embedding them early, the skills early, and trying to just, it doesn't matter what level they produce. At the moment, my year 7s are probably not producing the quality that my 7s produced last year, but they're enjoying the process and learning skills, and they're teaching each other. My classroom is somewhat chaotic at times, but you'll often see someone going over and helping someone else with a skill. And that's just so powerful in a classroom, because the teacher can't be everywhere. And if you're free to that, and they'll discover things that you didn't know. So it's just being open to that sort of discovery, and by the time they get to senior, you can see what they're producing by the time they're in senior.
I think that's a really important point. You mentioned that it can be applicable to other subjects, like history. What we saw from Brett today, was 25 out of 25 level assessment tasks. There's no reason that in the junior years in particular, StoryMaps can't be used simply for a student to communicate content or an essay or something like that, and just getting them introduced to the technology without the complexity of the maps is possibly a good starting spot as well. Another question, Brett, from Deborah. Oh, sorry. No, I'll skip Deborah for now. Suzanne, Brett, where are some of the places, the web addresses on the internet? Where do you go to find this data? Where do the students go?
So that's a great question. Arcgis Online is one of my favorites, but the national map is where Sam, for his senior subject, got a lot of the data. It's just a web address, and they bring it into their Arcgis Online map, create that, and then bring it into their story map. I do go to, I've actually got a PowerPoint showing all the councils in Australia that share their data as well. So I'm happy to share that with people as well. But it's just, I start by getting the students to go to Arcgis Online, go to add data and search for data. You type in anything. With my environmental movement, we found poaching data. We found tiger data. It's just there's just a plethora of data. If anyone would like, the ABS has data that is freely available as well, which I use for my students. So yeah, there's a number of different ways you can get data.
Awesome. Susan asks, what is the easiest way to get started with Esri? We have found it difficult to get into. From a teacher's perspective, I think this is it's valuable to hear from you on this, Brett.
Yeah, look, I managed the administration side myself as a teacher, and I add teachers to the. I've just worked pretty well by myself for a long time. My pre-service teacher is now an administrator on the Esri account here, and she got into the Year 7's work last night and had a look at who'd been working on their assignment and came into class today well prepared to talk to the students who had not been on their account for over a week. So I think it's getting started, and I know Jake's got a really good lesson on how to bring in a whole class. I do it individually at the moment because I'm only doing, I think I've got 200 registered students at the school on our account, but next year I'll be bringing in whole class sets, and Jake, your lesson on how to do that I think is really valuable. I would have more than one administrator as a teacher. It's been really valuable for my pre-service teacher to see how wonderful it is to manage. And I can chip my seniors as well if they're not on there. Sometimes they'll go a week without working on their assignment, and I'll be able to chip them on that as well. So I think that side of things, once you get your head around it, it's really easy to manage. And you're making it much easier now with some of your little lessons and videos as well, Jake.
Awesome, thank you. I'll point people to that website in a second. A couple of questions from Nathan. How did you go about arranging receiving the data from the council for the Stradbroke case? I think it was.
Yeah, that's a great question. They sent me what did they send me? I sent them a USB, or they sent me a USB. They were really generous. I asked for a number of different layers. I wanted land use, I wanted roads, I wanted any environmental layers that they could give me. Now, they're one of the councils that don't make their data available online anymore. I think they used to, the Redlands, but Brisbane City Council is online. You can just go to Brisbane City Council, Moreton Bay Shire, which is the Bribie Island project that you saw. They make their data freely available online, and you just type in Moreton Bay Regional Council into the Arcgis Online search, and it comes up with all the different layers that you're able to use.
And the second question from Nathan, how do you, in inverted commas, onboard students to teach them how to use the program as a whole?
How do I just throw them into it.
Best way to learn.
You show them the capability of it. So one of the young teachers here is creating her own lessons for year 7, and she's just becoming a bit of a gun at it. She includes her questions in it. She doesn't need, one of the things that's really good is that textbooks age very quickly, and you can just update your data on your StoryMap teaching resource, and it's up to date, and that's some of the beautiful things about it. But what she does is showcase the StoryMap she's created, and the students go, oh, how'd you do that? Is that something you created? So you create that interest. She's doing it really cleverly. I show them how to, I start at the beginning, show them how to put the front page in, add text. Next step is add photos. Then you trap them by getting that swipe map. You show them how to do the swipe map. And that's my next YouTube video, is how to do a swipe map from the Wayback app. And I think, you'll capture them very rapidly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. A couple of administrative questions that I might quickly just answer. The first one from Susan again, do you have some videos or cheat sheets on how to sort out the admin part of Esri? Brett has alluded to it. If you visit the Esri Australia Schools website, we have a couple of administrative videos on how to activate your account and how to invite fellow teachers and students, and that URL will be on the next slide. StoryMaps iPad friendly. You can view StoryMaps on an iPad, but I would assume that Brett would probably agree with me, I would not be getting my students to build a story map on an iPad. The reality is you really want the full functioning of a keyboard or a laptop, sorry. And the bigger the screen, the more you can do when you are designing your story map. I know that I'm fairly sure that they're actually not iPad friendly when it comes to the creation and design process, but if your screen is too small, StoryMaps will tell you that you can't create and design on a screen too small. So I would definitely stay with laptops when creating StoryMaps.
Can I just jump in there?
Go for it.
All our creation is done on laptops, and then we use the iPads out in the field for the apps and taking photos, all that sort of thing. The apps like Survey 123 are great for iPads. You go out and get your data there, but definitely I would agree with you that all the work that you do with the story maps should be done on laptops.
Yeah. And we've got one last question from Leanne. Would you recommend using this with science subjects as well? I know you mentioned history. How would biology go, for instance?
Yeah, great question. I've got ITD, which is industrial design, interested in it at the moment, so I'm going to share with them. Science, definitely. The problem at the moment is with the new Queensland syllabus, the geography is the only one, and this is something I'm really proud of, and proud of the people who designed the syllabus, is that we're the only ones that can use this effectively in senior. A lot of them are not able to use these sorts of apps, and I video record, I MP4 these story maps and send them to the curriculum authority. But science definitely has, the earth science teacher has an account now, and his daughter's in my class, and she's showing him how to use it, and he's using it in his classroom as well. So not only bio, but earth science, industrial design, history, all those, certainly there would be application. I know in the United States, the main departments that use GIS are the science departments.
Yeah, yeah, and like you mentioned, Earth and space sciences really does lend itself to it as well, because it does have that element of geography and land use and whatnot in it. So the maps are just naturally become a part of it.
Yeah.
We have a couple more minutes, and we have had a couple more questions. Myra, hope I'm pronouncing that right. In the past, I used ArcGIS where schools had to purchase a license. No longer the case. We had to obtain base maps from the council, and we had to convert data in order for it to talk to ArcGIS. Is ArcGIS Online more user-friendly? For example, are base maps available, and is the data already in the correct format? Do you want to answer that, Brett? Or?
Mate, I'd love to, because it's so much fun these days. There's a color pencil map that's a base map these days, and there's a blue it's almost like a what would you call it? There's so many cool base maps that you can start with year 7s with, and all that data is available. In saying that too, I still create my own data. I still use that ArcMap 10.8, which is a part of the package, I think, now anyway, isn't it, Jake?
For new schools, or for schools that have just recently joined, we're now using ArcGIS Pro instead of ArcMap, but it's essentially the same software.
Yeah. So the data is freely available. In fact, the other day I got on to the internet, typed in regional HDI, and there was a shapefile there from a company, and it was freely available. So I've now got a shapefile of all the HDI of regional areas in the world. When COVID was breaking out after the Ruby Princess, I also found New South Wales health data, the districts, which was freely available. So it's just a matter of typing in whatever shapefile you want into a Google search, and quite often you'll discover it's a bit of a discovery process, but it's well worth doing, I would suggest.
Yeah. Alrighty. I think that's all the questions we have today. Couple of, I guess, housekeeping issues. First of all, thank you, Brett. Your time's super appreciated. I know personally this week Brett has worked a fair bit and given up a fair bit of his time, so I'm very thankful for you, and I'm sure that the teachers that attended today are super thankful of your time. A reminder that you can reach Brett via the email, which is displayed on the screen, as well as via LinkedIn or via his YouTube channel. You'll notice that I've cut off the generic part of the web address, so youtube.com, and I've just left the bit that is specific to his particular channel. Okay, I did mention that there's been a couple of questions of wanting more PD nature. So I do want to draw your attention to a couple of things. I just want to let you know that our Teaching with GIS webinar series continues over the next 2 Thursdays, and you can visit the professional development webpage to register, which is the URL down the bottom of this slide. Our next webinar on Thursday, the 29th of October, features Naomi Bulch and Rebecca Infanti from Tintern Grammar, who will share on how they've used ArcGIS in both junior and senior assessment. And I think it'll be really good because talking to them, they have mentioned that they've experienced some challenges. So it'll be good to see some of the challenges that have come up in implementing it too. I will briefly show you the PD page for those that are interested. This is what Brett has been referring to, and this is what I've been referring to. This has been created this year for teachers, and it just has video tutorials on how to set up your account, how to add teachers and students. There's a couple of questions that were about data and how to add data into ArcGIS. I'd encourage you to check out some of the resources here, as well as Brett's YouTube, as to where to find some of that data. So that's something to be aware of. Other than that, a reminder that you will receive a recording of this webinar, which will be sent via email and will be available on our website too. And if you're not reaching out to Brett, but you did want some support for something else, feel free to reach out to me at education@esriaustralia.com.au, and I'd be happy to help as well. That's it from both myself and Brett. Thanks, Brett, again, and thank you for everyone for joining us today. And we'll see you at the next Teaching with GIS webinar.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, everyone.